Hello, I'm Kelly Gallup, and for the next 90 minutes or so, I'm going to take you on a guided trip down the Madison River. As you can see, I'm sitting in one of the most beautiful places on earth. I'm at the confluence of the Gibbon and the Firehole River, which create the Madison River. Over my right shoulder here is the Madison, where it goes out of view there. And what we're going to do is we're going to take a trip through the entire Madison River. We're in the park right now, the Yellowstone National Park, and this is where the whole thing starts here. Off to my right you see the Firehole River, and the Firehole is a very unique river. The geothermal effect that the river has, where the geysers heat that river up, make it very warm, constant warm throughout the winter even. And that creates a whole different system in the park for the Madison. It's much warmer up here than it is anywhere else, and that's unique because it sustains more bug populations. And here's the Gibbon coming in from the east. The Gibbon's a beautiful little river in its own respect. It doesn't have as much of the thermal effect that the Firehole does, but still has some. And we're going to show you as we go the different styles of fishing that are most popular in those areas, and then we're going to show you what you're going to expect for hatches and water types, you know, if it's wadeable or should be fished from a boat, and just basically a view of the entire river, so when you get ready to come out and fish the Madison, you'll be better informed as to what type of equipment flies, water conditions and whatnot throughout the year, not just for the summer. But as you can see right now, it seems kind of summery, but we're here and it's the middle of October actually right now. We've got a really beautiful day to start the shootout, and we're going to start right now. We're just going to go right below where the confluence here. We're going to start fishing just below here, about a mile or so. And we're going to show you the park water. As we get towards the end of the park, we'll get down towards the Barnes hole and some of the other more popular holes, and we're just going to keep going all the way down. As you can see, the upper few miles of the Madison is very glassy. This is the classic meadow stretches of the Madison, and for what you're seeing right here is pretty typical of the first 3 miles or so of the river. Intermittent riffles, like if you know, real slight riffles, but a lot of really glassy water, which is just classic dry fly water. This is October again, so there's not a lot of people around. But as you can see, there's plenty of room here, and virtually it's real shallow. I mean, it's hard to find a place 3 feet deep here, 2-3 feet. And if it's over 2 foot deep, it's a really short little pocket. But that'll also probably have fish in it. But as you can see, it's just real slick. And this is typical of everything you see. This is big wintering ground for the elk. There's usually a lot of elk and stuff in here. Bison, you see all kinds of stuff. Mostly you see human stuff. There's people all over the place here, you know, because there's so many pull-offs. But that's what makes this such good fishing, such good access fish-wise. It's because as far as you can see, the road's paralleling it, and you can walk through any one of these meadows and have these just classic dry fly slicks as far as you see. When you come in to fish this, again, just like most of the upper water, you're going to want to fish soft hackles and not a lot of weight. And again, this whole thing, no weight, no lead. You can use tin shot. But for the most part, you're going to be swinging wet flies, emergers, and then, you know, once the dry fly fishing comes, you'll be able to fish classic dry fly style of fishing. But this is pretty much typical of the upper Madison for the first 4 or 5 miles below the confluence of the Firehole and the Gibbon. There's a couple of things you need to know when you come into the park. The first one is that lead's illegal in the park, so you don't want to get caught with any lead in here. The big thing is, though, is that you don't really need it. You know, everybody's worried about that and the tin shot, but because the water's so shallow, and for the most part, even in this is one of the heavier riffles in the park section, it's pretty easy to do a beadhead and maybe a little tungsten, and I'll show you that in a second. But for the most part, you'll see a lot of people in the park fishing with soft hackles and swinging a lot of flies because they're in the shallow water, but they're for the most part, it's pretty shallow. Even right here, it's not even 2 foot deep, so a pair of beadheads is going to get you to the bottom really quickly. If you decide you need a little bit more, you can use the tin shot. I like to keep a little piece of tungsten putty on my rod, and it does the job. Anywhere in the park I need to, especially when we're going to be swinging wet flies or even nymphing them like I'm going to in this little riffle here. When we get into the bigger, flatter water, then I like to swing emergers, soft hackles, you know, just undulating flies. Flies have little movement to them, a lot of partridge hackle, and, you know, run an emerger behind it. But I'll run a beadhead above if I want the weight, or I'll use this putty here. Either way, it's pretty easy. One thing you don't want to be doing here is running a lot of great big indicators because the water's so shallow. And one thing you're going to see in the park, and I don't care what time of year it is, it's mid-October right now. I pulled down here because of the lack of people, but it's pretty hard to get away from people in the park proper. It's not like it's elbow to elbow, but there's always going to be someone within eyesight of you for the most part. So what you want to do is kind of sparse things up. You don't want to be fishing really heavy, big old giant indicators and stuff like that. You'll see what I've got on my line is just a piece of 13 weight fly line that I cored and slid up there. It's just enough so I can see it. And a lot of people don't run indicators at all because they think that they spook the fish. But for this type of water right here, I'm going to go with a 2-fly rig. I've just got a pair of bead heads on. I'm sure that'll get me to bottom. If I need a little extra, I'm going to throw some putty on here. I'm going to start out with just a couple of tractors. I've got a soft tackle up above, and then I've got a little copper john, a red copper john. Just going to see what happens. There's quite a few caddis moving around in here. And again, because we're near the fire hole, this water stays warm longer. And that's something else you have to be aware of when you're in the park, is because of the thermal effect and the warming effect of the fire hole, you have to be careful that you know the river's open. The Park Service will close a river, and they'll give notice, and they'll give it at the entrances, and all the fly shops will be able to tell you. But because the water gets so warm and they're concerned about the fish, they'll close a river down completely to fishing. Sometimes, you know, a week, 2, 3, it can be months or more. But you have to know what's open. You've got kind of a reverse effect than what the rest of the rivers. We get hatches in the park. They come much earlier than they do anywhere else because the water warms so much quicker. And so you can anticipate stoneflies sometimes a month in advance of what you will down below, for example. It's not very often that you don't see dry fly fishing in the park. You can fish a lot of different techniques. What I'm doing is I'm just pocket water nymphing like I would anywhere in any type of freestone river. But this river's really shallow, so it lends itself. I don't have any weight on here. I'm just going into the pockets and letting the flies swing around. And then as I go through, I'm letting the flies swing all the way back down around me and looking for a fish that's looking for a fly emerging. There's a technique that you can use when you're swinging flies. It's called a slip strike. It's a very old technique. I've written about it in one of my books, and I just did an article about it, about sunk spinners, and I mentioned it in there. And it's funny, a lot of people have asked me where I came up with it. It's really old. I mean, my grandfather showed me, and most people that wet fly fish know what it is. But the idea here is that the line's tight, and if you're swinging down and the fish comes up and eats the fly, that you're so tight because it's straight to the rod tip that you go like this and you kind of beat the fish. He doesn't have a chance to close its mouth. And so what you do is you simply hold the line under your finger with about 18 inches or so of line here, and when you feel the fish, you try to just slip that line. All it's doing is giving a little bit of slack line so the fish has a moment to close his mouth around the fly, it doesn't make it a sure thing. You still get a lot of bumps that you don't hook up when you're swinging, but it'll help some for sure. Now I'm doing a kind of a two-part thing. I'm kind of fishing upstream, looking to the soft water for fish that are just like that are sitting, waiting for the dry flies. Hey. And then when it goes through, when the fly goes through, I swing it at the bottom. It's a mystery to me how a barbless hook can bite like that. I think one of the things that, and a lot of people want to know if they should fish wet, dry, or streamer fish. You know, they come into the shop and they always want to know which technique to fish. And in a lot of places, you don't have an option. In the park, you do. You can nymph fish, you can streamer fish, you can dry fly fish with just about equal efficiency. I've kind of switched off right here, off of nymphing just to upstream nymphing without any weight, because one of the things that dictates whether you can dry fly fish or not dry fly fish, aside from the water type, is the water temperature. Fish will have a tendency, when you get into the low 50s, to not want to stick their head out of the water. They're just not as active. The park allows you to do that a lot longer season than a lot of places because the water's staying warmer. And so you get a chance to fish a little bit higher in the water column and not have to be on bottom. That's what I'm doing right now. I've got a 20 nymph and a 20 wet fly, and I'm just fishing straight upstream like I would with a dry fly, because the water's warm enough and the fish are active enough that they'll keep looking up. You have to be prepared to see anglers on the water, and you really need to be prepared to practice a little common courtesy out here. If you see somebody there's just a ton of water, you don't have to crowd somebody, but there's plenty of water to get away. If you'll walk a little bit, you can usually get water all to yourself like we've got here. We've moved downstream about 6 miles, and we're just above what's called the Barnes Pool. And the Barnes Pool pretty much where the river changes complexion again. We've went from the meadows and the long, shallow riffles, and from here down to 191 Bridge, or the Baker's Hole. The Baker's Hole campground is what Baker's Hole refers to, and that's the end of the Yellowstone National Park water. From there to Hebgen Lake, the water will change complexion again. It'll be a little bit more flat and smooth surfaced, but it'll be much deeper. The water's going to start to condense a little bit here, and then but from here down, what's going to happen is the river's going to tighten up a little bit. Hey, that looks like a native. That's one of them there whitefish, the other species. Easy. We don't count that one. From here down, what's going to happen is the river's going to start to serpentine through the valley, and it's going to narrow up, not shallow up. It's going to get narrower, and you can see this is pretty much where it starts right here, and it's gonna, from here down, it's gonna get kind of windy, and the pools will get deeper, the river will get narrower, and this is kind of the classic fall fishery area. Fish is good year-round. It's below the Firehole far enough that it's not as affected by the warming of the waters. But this is the spawning area for the brown trout as well as the rainbows in the spring. And what happens here, and that's why it's so popular in this section, there's a lot of gravel, and this is kind of where historically where a lot of people have come to fish the park for the big spawning brown trout. We're a little bit early right now. We've had a really warm season, but generally by the 1st of October you can plan on seeing a few spawners in here, and that's why so many people come in this area to fish, because it's pretty easily read. It comes down from above here, it's pretty still wide and open, and when I go around this corner it's going to narrow up. And so what you've got is pool, riffle, and it does that for the next couple miles down all the way to Highway 191. And so it's pretty easily read, and it's got a good trail through it. You can walk, pretty easily the river and get out and fish any one of these pools that you'd like and have a pretty decent trail all the way back to the trailhead right here. It's a good rainbow. This is one of the rainbows I would assume that comes up to follow the browns, but you get a lot of rainbows this size in here if we can get him to come out of that fast water. This is pretty typical, maybe a little bigger than what you would normally get right here. Not bad. Pretty typical. Right there. Easy, little buddy. Hey, just your tip. That's pretty good rainbow for in here. This fish, what I would assume, has come up out of the lake and has got line everywhere. That fish has come up out of the lake, I would assume, he's in such perfect shape. Looks like a little steelhead, but come up to eat eggs, I would assume, out of the backside. This is pretty impressive water through here. And again, it's just going to be just like we're looking at right now. Lots of pockets, lots of tail outs like the two gentlemen below me that are fishing. Just hole, pool, tail out, riffle, pool, tail out, riffle. I'm going to continue to fish this little slot right here, and I'm going to go up and grab a streamer rod and try that. One of the most popular ways to fish this stretch of river, because it's such great walk streamer water, is to just come through on the shallow sides and fish these deep cuts. Mostly people swing flies. I don't like to totally swing them. I like to animate them a little bit, but generally people are swinging bigger flies. That one got my blood moving because there's fish in this stretch. They come out of Hebgen Lake to spawn, and there's 20-pound fish in this river. And so you never know what, I've never got one that big. I've never got one over 8 pounds actually, but in this river. But I know they're in here. I've seen them, and I know people have caught them. So every time one like that rainbow, I mean, he really had me fooled. I thought he was a big fish. Oh yeah, that's what we're here for. That's a thumper. Man, did he slam that thing. Thought that was a giant. Too bad, but Man, that thing hit that fly like it was 6 pounds. We'll take them. That's where we want you. Oh, man, that thing throttled that thing like he was what we were after. Nice rainbow. He hit it a lot bigger than I thought. The way he drilled that thing, I would have thought that was a 6, 7 pound brownie. There's no bad time to fish streamers in this river. We fish them all summer. There's no bad time. The difference is that in the fall, you've got a higher concentration of fish, especially big fish, who are just more susceptible to the big fly. They're more aggressive, so people tend to fish the streamers more. But we fish them year round. I'm a streamer freak. A lot of the guys that work for me are, and they just, if you fish them, you'll catch fish on them. There's not a better or best. Just it has to do with the concentration of the fish, I think. I like to keep moving. I make a cast, run it through. The way I see it is that if the fish is, you're looking for players, you throw a 5-inch long fly through there, they see it, they want it, they're gonna eat it. I don't like sitting on these gravel spots and just where you know they're spawning and sitting and swinging flies in front of them and doing that repetitive cast thing. I would rather just go cover a lot of water, look for the player, see lots of country. When I get around this corner, after having worked this and that nymph stretch up above here, you really will have seen the entire stretch from the Barnes hole down, because it really just replicates itself from here down. It just continuously corner, deep pool, riffle, corner, deep pool, riffle, on and on and on. It's just, this is probably my favorite section of the whole park, just because it's got so much contour, you know, the different types of ground, or riffles I mean, and there's so much holding water for really big fish. I just really love this stretch of water. And it's probably the most consistent stretch, for me at least, in the park. What we're going to go over now is flies for the Madison. And I've got boxes of flies here, and I'm going to show you examples, and they're just examples. They're kind of just, you know, general types of flies. And if you're going to go into the park, or you're going to go to one end of the river or the other, you need to understand there's a lot of shops around here, and there's a lot of really high quality shops. And if you're going to go into the park, for example, there's 4 really good shops in West Yellowstone, and you ought to take the time to stop in there, visit with the people, because there's always some new cutting edge fly. These are going to be just general types of flies, and some of the ones that I found that work really consistently, but there's always a little tweak, you know, some little special fly, and there's a lot of guys in each of the shops that are really specialized. For example, in the park, there's shops in West Yellowstone that are really specialized, and you get down closer to Ennis, there's guys that are really specialized in that parts of the river. So it really, you know, it's money well spent to stop in there and talk to those guys. And what I'm going to go over now are just, I'm going to start with nymphs, and I'm going to just kind of go through the general nymphs, then I'll go into the general dries. We're going to kind of go just to progress right through all of them, right to finally with the streamers. So what I've got here, just as an example, are on the top row here, these are all midge larva and midge pupa patterns. This is a beadhead red midge, disco midge, and I've got a non-beaded crystal serendipity, then a green serendipity, a brown serendipity, a red serendipity, and a brassy. And they're color types, and they're just the type of fly that we fish most often here. A red brassy is also real good, as is a silver brassy. That's about as basic as a midge gets. Red brassies, copper brassies, silver, they're just examples because we have such a rich body of water here. There's so many midges that you just really want to make sure you've got some of these. And the serendipity is a good cross-dresser. It can be a midge, it can be a caddis, it can be several things. It could be a crane fly larva. So the serendipity is a real standard, for this river. Down below I've got examples of caddis larva and caddis pupa. Here I've just got a pearl caddis larva, a green caddis larva, a green caddis pupa, and you're seeing a trend here. We do a lot of green pupas, and this is a LaFontaine sparkle pupa, or my version of it. And then here's just another green sparkle pupa. It's starting to get a little darker. And then over here we've got the brown pupa. You can't have too many caddis types of flies either. If you've got something you use at home, bring it with you. You never know. The next row I've got here, these are mayfly nymphs. And I'm starting with this little tiny Baetis nymph over here. It's a size 22. Then I go to an olive hare's ear. The olive hare's ear is one of my all-time favorites for this river, for any river for that matter. It's, that's as basic as it gets. Then I've got some different Baetis patterns here. And then I go into your basic pheasant tail. I mean, the pheasant tail's caught as many fish as anything in this river for sure. And another just basic, PMD type pheasant tail. And over here I've got a little soft hackle. It's a sunk spinner. And sunk spinners are really good on this river. General again, very general, olive, nothing to it, just basic stuff. On the bottom row what I have are examples of attractors, which is a real popular way to fish on the Madison. A lot of people like to run an attractor up high, which can be, in the past, the Prince nymph was probably the most popular, and it's starting to take a back seat to the flies like the lightning bug and the copper johns. This is a lightning bug. This is a red copper john, green copper john, a beadhead Prince nymph, and then a flash of Prince, which is just a Prince nymph with a little bit of flashaboo on top of it. And of course over here I've got a San Juan worm. All colors of San Juan worms are always good on this river. And just attractors, again, this is real popular to fish the attractors with one of the point flies behind it, say 12, 14 inches behind your attractor. Use that for a little flash and get the fish's attention, and then they usually go for the other one. The top row are caddis, and the thing about caddis is that this is a really prolific caddis river, and there's as many styles of caddis as there is any other type of bug. But the standard elk hair caddis, and you're going to run these in anywhere from a 16 to a 20. This is a standard elk hair caddis with a peacock body. Then next to that I've got a Lawson's caddis. And then I've got a little parachute caddis. A lot of people like the parachutes because they can see that little wing in there. It's really, the river, a lot of times you're fishing with low light and in the riffles and you can't see the flies very well. A lot of people like that. Here's another alternative to that. This is one of Rainey's high-vis caddis. It's just got a little bit of high-vis in it so you can see the wing. And over here I've got a sunk caddis. I included that because I catch so many fish on this style of fly. It's just an egg-laying caddis. It's a little soft hackle. And I drop that behind any one of these flies. That's one of my favorite combinations. About 10 inches behind is to drop a little egg-laying caddis. In the next row, I've got examples of mayflies. And on this river, we tend to run a lot of parachutes because they float nice and low in the film, and they're easily seen. And what I've got here are a parachute Adams yellow. PMDs. Parachute Adams covers almost every other mayfly there is. Then I've got a high-vis Baetis. Next to that I've got what's called, this is a really old fly, and it's coming back in popularity. It's called an exploding nymph. And it's a mayfly that's emerging, and we get so many of these, and the water's turbulent and it's just flying all over the place. And a lot of people fish bugs right in the film, and that's a great example of a bug that you can fish right in it. You won't be able to see it at all, but it's just an emergent mayfly. And then beside that, I've got another just generic, it's one of my emergers. Just, again, it's a film fly right down in. And even though it's Riley, you're still going to fish a lot of film flies. The next row are just generic spinners. And it's probably the most underfished fly on the entire Madison, is to fish the spinners. Here I've got 3 different colors of spinners. There's a lot of big fish taken on these flies, and these are just examples of them. They're just different types of the same thing. And likewise below this, I've got some kind of generic, this is my brown drake pattern here, and I've got it in 2 different sizes. I've got it in the smaller, say 16, and that's when the Epioris are here. A little bit bigger one for the March Browns and the gray drakes. These are just parachutes that ride low in the water. They give a good silhouette. They're really generic though. I fish this dark brown for virtually every bug here. Then beside it I've got a green drake pattern, especially in the park in the fall. A lot of green drakes. Midsummer we've got some, mid to late summer you get the gray drakes as well. And you know, these are just general impressions, especially in the lower water where it starts picking up velocity. We don't have to have quite as exact a patterns. Up in the park where you got the real big slicks, you might want to get a little bit more close representation. But I find that these parachutes, if they're close in size, they're pretty well matched to anything you're going to see.